This is Delhi. Please stand by for our next program.
This is All India Radio. You will now hear comments from the press. The Times of India in its editorial titled Tragic Easter writes, yesterday was Easter, a day of celebrations for Christians across the world. But in Sri Lanka, 8 serial blasts brutally tore through the peace of the day, targeting churches in different regions of the island nation as well as luxury hotels. Over 200 people were killed and 450 injured. Sri Lanka hasn't seen this kind of violence ever since LTTE was defeated in 2009. The attacks didn't come entirely out of the blue, given that Sri Lanka's police chief had issued a nationwide alert 10 days before, according to which suicide bombers aimed to hit prominent churches as well as Indian High Commission in Colombo. That the attackers nevertheless got through speaks of high degree of planning, coordination and availability of resources. Targeting churches, particularly as worshippers gathered for Easter Mass, suggests a religious motivation alongside foreigners too appear to have been targeted. Parallels are understandably been drawn with the 26/11 Mumbai attacks. Pakistan often targets and destabilizes its South Asian neighbors, and one hopes there isn't a Pakistani angle to this one, especially as the Indian High Commission appears to figure on the list of targets. The Economic Times, in its editorial title Condemn the Terror Strikes in Sri Lanka, says, we stand with the people of Sri Lanka in condemning the terrorist attacks that have killed more than 200 people and injured more than twice as many, and support the Government of India's offer of solidarity and support. That churches were targeted on the day of Easter Sunday, when Christians commemorate the resurrection of Christ on the third day of his crucifixion, shows that the purpose of the attack was to target Christians. Bomb blasts at luxury hotels show the intent to hurt foreign tourists. The attack must be understood as one designed to attack Christians, foreigners and the Sri Lankan economy, in which tourism plays a vital part. While the police have not named any organization has been involved, it has confirmed the use of suicide bombers, indicating the involvement of fanatic conviction of the kind shown by religious extremists and the Tamil Tigers. The Indian Express, in its editorial title Your Honour, writes, the sexual harassment complaint against Chief Justice of India Ranjan Gogoi by a woman who once worked in his office is about much more than an individual accusing an individual. Given that it names the Chief of the Highest Court an institution fundamental to the health of the nation's democracy, the complaint tests the integrity of the entire institution. More so at a time of delicate and sometimes indelicate balancing of powers between the executive and the unelected supervisory institutions. In January last year, it was Justice Gogoi who risked his elevation to the highest judicial office by joining 3 of his colleagues in the collegium at a press conference to caution the nation against attempts to undermine the independence of the judiciary. The jury is still out on how that unprecedented airing of an internal dispute affected the institution, but one thing is clear. Since then, a lot more of the Supreme Court has been in public glare than ever. There is often a frantic rush to judge judicial independence through the prism of politics. Curiously, the court responded in a hurried manner, convening an extraordinary sitting barely hours after the allegations went public. The government's representative Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, with the CJI himself in attendance, tore into the complaint, questioned the motives of the complainant. In the presence of 2 brothers justices, Justice Gogoi warned of a bigger force behind the complaint set off by the people who want to deactivate the office of the CJI. The alarm bells couldn't have been more ominous. They raised more questions than they answered. That's why how the court responds to the complaint will test its institutional integrity and resolve. The Asian Age, in its editorial title Justice Must Be Seen to Be Done, says, justice must not only be done but also be seen to be done. No one knows this better than the Chief Justice of India, but at first sight he doesn't seem to have acted in a way that would convince anyone that he had instituted the right measures to handle the sexual harassment complaint against him. Far from handing over the sensitive matter to the Gender Sensitization and Internal Complaints Committee of the Supreme Court, which is empowered to deal with any complaint in the Supreme Court precincts, the CJI presided over a bench assembled in extraordinary circumstances to hear suo motu into the online publication of sexual harassment allegations leveled against him by a former court employee. He sat on the bench and spoke about the matter before withdrawing to leave the judicial matter or passing any order to his 2 junior colleagues. It came as no surprise that the colleagues didn't wish to pass any order. We want to believe this is a frivolous complaint as made out in what the CJI said. It would ill-behove a nation if one of its most powerful men, the highest judicial authority, were not to be, like Caesar's wife, above suspicion. Whatever the merits of the claim of harassment in his own house, where the assistant was posted, the CJI straightaway breached one cardinal legal principle: you can't be a judge in your own cause. His participation in the proceeding betrays the fact that justice is prima facie not seen to be done. Those were the comments from the press presented to you by the News Services Division of All India Radio.
This broadcast came to you from the Delhi station of All India Radio.